A while back, my friend Steve, Dizzy Lyman, posted a video about IRL Steve versus URL Steve, and that is the video to which I am currently responding. This isn't the type of video I usually post. It's more about a serious topic, and it's just kind of me discussing. So if you want a little background, go watch Steve's video. Steve's video on different aspects of the personality really got the wheels in my head a-turning. The wheels in my head have been turning since I looked at that loony old man. See, I promised myself I'd be married to Belle, and right now I'm evolving a plan. Sorry, what was I talking about? As an English major, I got pretty enthusiastic about Steve's opening up this discussion. Discussions on the self and different aspects of it and how we define it and how we define our own selves and other people's selves and understanding each other are pretty much what you do in every literature course ever. I secretly think that every person who majors in English is really just striving for a little more self-definition. You'd think with all the time we spend with ourselves, we'd completely understand ourselves and other people's selves and the whole concept of a self. But that's the thing, we don't. We don't understand it at all. And this theme has been explored by so many writers. In Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, Alice is described as a child who enjoys arguing with herself and pretending to be two separate people. And then she has conversations back and forth. And it's really just a dramatization of all these different parts of ourselves that are vying for attention and for dominance in our personalities and for the way that we portray ourselves to other people. Alice happens upon a caterpillar early on in the book when she gets to Wonderland, who asks her, "Who are you?" And she doesn't know how to answer the question. She says that she hardly knows who she is, but she knows who she was when she got up this morning, but so many things have changed since then that she no longer does. A personality is something that is so malleable and always changing, and it's impossible to stay the same person all the time. And if we did, we'd have kind of a pointless existence. The fact that we're always changing and that we're hard to define is what gives our life meaning and worth. The fact that we can progress and change. Another famous example of this self-definition is Hamlet. The play starts with the words, "Who's there?" And the whole play, in a way, is characters asking each other, "Who's there?" The characters being asked don't even know how to answer the question exactly. Someone asks if he's Horatio, and he says, "A piece of him," instead of saying, "Yes, I am Horatio." Our outer selves and what we portray to other people isn't in our entire personality. We're made up of so many other things than that. What we think of ourselves at this very moment, and what we want other people to think of us, and how we want to portray ourselves. We're really all just kind of these shells, these outward productions of how we see ourselves. It's a labyrinth. I'm having a really hard time explaining this. There's this absolutely brilliant speech in Hamlet where Hamlet is told that he seems sad or sorrowful or something like that, and he starts talking about how he has that within him which passeth show. And it's kind of the idea that we have these things within our personalities that it's impossible for us to convey to other people, but we try to convey them, and other people try to understand them, but there's so many different things in between us blocking us. There's so many different layers. Part of that is discussion and phrasing when you're talking, and verbal communication isn't the best way to communicate, and it's the best we have. Words are not good enough to explain everything that we're thinking to each other and everything that we are to each other. But it's what we have, so it's what we work with. And there's so many other examples in literature exploring this theme, and so many authors who do tackle it. Pretty much every Shakespeare play has some discussion of the self in it, which is all absolutely fascinating, and Shakespeare does a wonderful job of raising these types of questions and making us think about really the ways in which humans attempt an understanding. There are entire genres built up around this, trying to understand yourself. When people write autobiographies, or even when people write biographies, those are just printed versions of people trying to produce an accurate representation of themselves. And it's still almost impossible. And we have so many other ways of trying to define ourselves. We have mirrors to look at ourselves and be able to see our outer surface, and even mirrors are really flipping the image and, twisting us in a way that doesn't really accurately represent who we are at all. And they're not 3D, and even if they were, that wouldn't be an accurate representation. Videos aren't an accurate representation. And this video is just as much me as I am me, which is a really weird thing to think about. One of my teachers brought up a really interesting question, and that was, which is a more accurate representation of who you are, a photo of you or a portrait painted by Picasso of you. Other more recent writers who've explored this theme include Stephen Chbosky, who wrote Perks of Being a Wallflower. His main character sits in front of a mirror and just stares at himself until he feels like there's nothing there anymore at all. And we try to define that too much and go into too much depth, it just becomes completely unintelligible and impossible to think about. John Green also uses this theme in Paper Towns and even Looking for Alaska, and just the idea of people not being what they seem all the time, and the whole idea of imagining each other complexly. And the reason why it's so prevalent is because it's so existent in real life. It's everywhere. How are we supposed to define ourselves? How are we supposed to define others? Is it all about outward appearances and how we choose to dress ourselves and appear to others? Or is it about the things we say? Or is it about the things we do? Or is it about the things we think? Are we defined by our relationships with others? Are we defined by our titles? There are just so many things to consider when trying to figure out how to define what a self is. Which is a more accurate representation of me? The way I act when I'm with friends in real life, or the way I act in videos when I'm editing them? If I'm editing them to be how I see myself to be, is that really more me than it is when I'm me unedited? And the things we create can be just as much ourselves as we are, as we consider the person our being to be. Anything we create becomes another portrayal of ourselves, just as our personalities that are shown to other people are a portrayal of ourselves. Us trying to play the role of ourselves accurately. I feel kind of weird making this entire video in my Halloween costume. Then I started thinking about it, and it's so fitting with this theme. I made this out of Christmas tree ornaments. I have fake hot pink highlights, and I have this crazy fake tattoo that I drew on my face, but maybe this is more me than the me I usually show you in videos. Maybe this is a more accurate representation of what I'm like on the inside. The bottom line is, it's impossible to fully understand ourselves. It's impossible to fully understand other people. What makes this whole situation so beautiful is that we continue to try to understand it and to try to understand ourselves and the connections in the world around us, and that we value self-expression, and that we try our hardest to communicate ourselves, and other people try their hardest to understand that self that we're communicating, and they in turn try to communicate their self. Because we're humanity, it's what we do.